How's it going, guys? I'm Theo Joe, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Pixel XL, Google's new phone. Google sent this to me to take a look at, so that's kind of surprising considering I called their keynote a snooze fest, but I guess they're the forgiving type. But anyway, this is not going to be a full review. It's just going to be first impressions, just based on stuff I've noticed after using it for like a couple hours, and then maybe in a couple weeks after I use it a lot more, we can take a lot more in-depth look into it. Now, the specifics of this one that they sent me is that it is the Pixel 4 XL, so it's the larger version of the two. It's the 128 gigabyte model, which is the bigger model in terms of storage, and the color is called Oh So Orange, which I think is a pretty cringy color name. I don't know who comes up with them, but whatever. It's not my favorite color, probably my least favorite of the three, but I don't know, this is totally personal preference, really. As for the rest of the design, I think I kind of like it. I don't really have any major complaints here. So there's no notch, which I prefer, I think. And then on the back, you'll notice it's like a matte finish color, which I really like. I really like this texture. It's like a very soft, almost rubbery look to it, but it's not really. I don't know how to describe it, but it's very soft and nice matte finish, which I prefer over glossy. Definitely gonna have less fingerprints on it. There's also the square camera bump, despite having just 2 cameras instead of 3. I don't know why they went with the giant camera bump with this, but I will point out that I like that it's only one level of the camera bump as opposed to like the iPhone, which has like a double camera bump. There's the module sticks out and then each lens sticks out. That's not the case here, so I like that they did that. Now, since this is just a first impressions video, what I'll do is just talk about my thoughts on some of the more bigger advertised features. Now, definitely one of the biggest features, if not the biggest feature they're talking about, is called Motion Sense. So there's literally a radar sensor built into that top housing of the camera. So the idea is you have gestures you can do, but the thing is there's really only one gesture option, which is swipe left and swipe right by waving your hand across the phone each direction. And this is really mostly only used in certain situations and certain apps that support it. So for example, if you're in Spotify, mostly like music apps, where you have a playlist, it'll show at the top like a little halo to show that you can use the gesture here, and then when you swipe across with your hand, it will skip or go back in the playlist. And you can also do this on the YouTube app. Now, for me, it was kind of hit or miss. I would say like 60% to 70% of the time it did work. The other percent of the time, it might like move the halo over, so it kind of seemed like it detected it, but not enough to actually do the whole gesture. And you don't really know why it's not working, so you kind of end up trying it a few times. I don't know if I'm going to even use this. When I was watching YouTube videos on this, I think I went to reach for something and I moved my hand across the phone and then it skipped to the next video while I was still watching it. It was super annoying. So honestly, I think this is just a gimmick, and I'm probably going to disable the skipping songs gesture and stuff like that. I don't see myself using it. I see it being more annoying than anything. However, there are other uses for this motion sense sensor. So for example, if you set an alarm and it starts going off, when you go to reach for the phone and it detects that your hand is within range of the phone, like above it, near it, it will actually make these alarm a lot quieter. So that's kind of nice if you're like clearly reaching for the phone, trying to find the button to turn it off. It doesn't seem as loud. And I think you can also use the gesture to stop the alarm. Another use of the sensor though is when your phone is just sitting down, you're not using it, and the always on display is like usually showing a clock, it will actually go completely black. The screen will turn off completely. And then when the motion sense radar thing detects that you are walking up to the phone or whatever, then it will actually turn the always on display back on again and show the little clock. So I have noticed a couple times when I was out of the room coming back in, and then when I get up to it, I see that the always on display comes back on. So I think that's pretty cool. Now, does all this justify having that sensor in there? I'm not sure. I would wonder how much that contributed to the price. I honestly think overall it's a bit of a gimmick, but who knows? It's up to you, I guess. Moving on though, we could talk about the display, and a big feature is that it's 90 hertz, so it's gonna be a lot smoother. Now, it's 90 hertz, so it's not like 120 drastic change. It is noticeably smoother if you know that it's 90 hertz and you compare it to 60 hertz, but I don't think it's anything where if you're coming from a 60 hertz phone and you start using this, you're gonna be like, wow, oh my gosh, it's so much smoother. But overall, I am very glad they added, because when you do notice that it is smoother and you know it's there, then I think it is more enjoyable, if that makes sense. Now, the screen color quality, obviously it's a very good looking screen being OLED, and it's very high quality. That's one of the things Google advertised about. But the brightness of the screen, just looking at it, it's clearly not a very bright screen, which I could see being some issues, specifically if you're using this outside in the bright sun, or you have it for your navigation in your car and it's bright out. I really wish they made the screen significantly brighter. It's not nearly as bright as like the iPhone 11 Pro, for example. I did a quick test with my light meter. So this was like 520 lux, whereas my iPhone 11 Pro, I tested it, it went up to like 970 lux. So it's not a linear relationship, so that doesn't mean like, oh, it's almost double the brightness, but it clearly is not nearly as bright as some other phones. Now, if you're inside and you're just doing general content with it, it's not a problem. Again, this is just going to be an issue where you're outside. All right, the next thing we have to talk about, though, is Face Unlock. I am very, very disappointed that they took out the fingerprint sensor and replaced it exclusively with the Face Unlock. I've never been a Face ID on the Apple side. I hated it when they took out the fingerprint sensor, and I'm really not happy and very disappointed that they did that here. Now, if they had both the fingerprint sensor and Face Unlock, I think that would be awesome. There are situations where you can't use a fingerprint sensor, like wearing gloves, but there are so many situations where you can't use the Face Unlock either. Specifically, like every single day when I wake up and I'm lying in bed and I go to do it, either my face is too close or you've been sleeping all night, so your face is all disheveled, and for whatever reason, it doesn't detect it. And then you end up typing your password because it's so annoying. In terms of speed, yes, it is quick to unlock. It's pretty much instant. As soon as you hold your face up to it and look at it, it does unlock. And I did actually change a setting so it doesn't dismiss the lock screen, because I won't actually be able to see the notifications there, but you can have it either way. Finally, though, we have to talk about the camera. Obviously, on Pixel phones, the camera is the main feature, I would argue, possibly, and that's no difference here. So we're not going to go into a big whole test photo review again. This is just first impressions here, just talking about some of the features, and there are several I like. Now, first of all, I do want to mention again that this is a dual camera system, not triple, despite having that big giant square camera module. So it's the regular and telephoto and no ultra wide. I am very disappointed they didn't add the ultra wide. I mean, honestly, if it was a choice between an ultra wide and a telephoto, I would probably still go with the telephoto. But after using the iPhone, I used the ultra wide a lot more than I thought I actually would. So I think they really are shooting themselves in the foot by not including one. Now, when you go to zoom, it's kind of interesting. So there's no selection of the lenses. You simply go through the zoom slider, and then at some point around 1.8, you'll notice it switches camera lenses. So it's kind of weird that it doesn't let you directly switch from the regular lens to the other one. I guess they want to make it as seamless as possible, but I kind of want to be able to use each camera at its native zoom, and you can't really do that. And it's such a weird zoom level. It's like 1.8, which doesn't even really make sense. If you get to 2.0, it's already been using the telephoto and zoomed past it, so I don't know why they did that. That's kind of a minor thing, but I wanted to point it out. Now, another feature I really like, though, is the dual exposure sliders now. So you have the regular brightness one that you always get, and then you also now have a shadow slider, so you can actually adjust the shadow brightness before you actually take the picture, so you can get some really cool silhouettes, or you notice maybe the shadows in a picture are darker than you'd like them to be, you can raise them up. And it does have the live HDR feature, so you're more likely to get the final result in the viewfinder right away than instead of having to take the photo and see what it does after all the processing. It's more likely going to be the final result in the viewfinder. Now, one negative thing I have to say, it has to do with video, which is the maximum recording resolution is still 4K 30, not 4K 60 FPS. So I don't know where that limitation is coming from. The Pixel camera, despite being amazing, they still can't get up to 60 FPS on 4K. I mean, this is something that, a lot of other phones have been able to do. So Google's flagship, their whole thing has to do with the camera being amazing, and they can't even do 4K 60 video. That's a joke to me, so I don't know what they're thinking with that. So those are all just my first impressions, first thoughts. I'm going to be doing the full review over the course of like the next 2 weeks or so be sure to subscribe for that. Let me know if there's anything specifically you want me to mention. I haven't had a chance to test out the battery life. Obviously, I've been having this for less than a day, although I have noticed it kind of has been draining faster than I expected, even compared to my iPhone 11 Pro, which is the smaller one, and this is the XL, and it has significantly bigger battery. So I don't know, just based on what I've seen in a couple hours, I don't know. We'll have to see. Obviously, I'm not going to make a judgment here. So I'll keep an eye on that, and we'll talk about that later again, obviously. If you guys want to keep watching, I'll put a link to my iPhone 11 Pro review here. I went into real depth with that, so you can hopefully find that pretty interesting. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.